Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into senior protection laws right here in Florida. We've got some listener sources that try to pin down, what is a senior citizen legally and how the state actually steps in against mistreatment.
Yeah, and what jumps out right away is that Florida, well, it doesn't really have just one definition. It's not that simple.
No single definition.
No, the age actually changes quite a bit depending on, the context. Are we talking discounts, insurance, or crucially, criminal protection? That variation is really the core of how this all works.
Okay, right. Let's unpack that. So, for basic consumer stuff, we're talking civil cases, unfair business practices. The law seems pretty broad.
Exactly. For those civil statutes, it's straightforward. Age 60 or older makes you a senior citizen. It casts a wide net, aiming for deterrence.
Simple enough. 60 plus. But then you mentioned criminal law, Chapter 825.
Ah, yes. And here it gets much more specific and, frankly, more interesting legally. For the serious criminal charges, abuse, neglect, exploitation, just being 60 isn't enough.
It isn't.
No. The law adds another layer. The person must be 60 and also be suffering from the infirmities of aging, to the extent that the ability to provide adequately for the person's own care or protection is impaired.
Wait, hold on. So for the state to bring the hammer down with criminal charges, they need age plus proof of vulnerability, like impaired self-care. Why that extra step?
Well, it really comes down to the burden of proof. Criminal court demands a much higher standard, beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right.
So the idea is to reserve those very serious penalties, the felony charges, for situations where the victim is demonstrably unable to protect themselves. It's about focusing the toughest legal tools on the most vulnerable.
Makes sense. It channels resources.
Yeah.
And just for context, things like AARP discounts might start at 50, Medicare at 65 federally, but this criminal protection is really focused on that impairment factor.
Precisely. Impaired self-care is the key legal trigger there.
Okay, so the state defines these most vulnerable folks quite narrowly. Now, let's talk about the tools, the actual crimes Florida prosecutes. It's not just vague harassment, right?
Not at all. The law is very precise. It focuses on three main categories: abuse, neglect, and exploitation.
Let's take abuse. What does that cover beyond the obvious physical stuff?
Well, one really notable one is something called unlawful isolation. Think of it as psychological abuse through forced separation.
So not just locking someone away physically.
Not necessarily. It's about intentionally cutting off an elderly person's contact with family, friends, the outside world, for a long enough time that it could actually cause harm, psychologically or physically. Isolation becomes a weapon.
Okay. And then neglect. That sounds like failing to do something.
It is. It's a crime of omission, usually by a caregiver. But here's a critical detail our sources highlight. Neglect isn't just failing to provide care yourself.
Oh.
It also includes failing to make a reasonable effort to protect the elder from abuse, neglect, or exploitation committed by someone else.
Wow, okay. So a caregiver has a duty to protect from others too. That's a significant responsibility.
Absolutely. And then there's exploitation, financial exploitation. This seems to be a huge focus.
It really is. The statute here is incredibly detailed. It specifically targets people in positions of trust guardians, folks with power of attorney.
Betrayal of trust. Exactly. And it also covers fraud related to things like wills and trusts, basically stealing through manipulating estate plans.
And the penalties are tied to the money involved, which is, well, it's pretty stark.
It really is. Get this. Exploitation involving assets worth $50,000 or more. That's automatically a first-degree felony.
$50,000, first-degree felony. What's the potential time?
Up to 30 years in prison.
30 years. That puts it on par with some really serious violent crimes.
It does, and that tells you how seriously the state views this. It's not just seen as theft. It's viewed as something that destroys an older person's fundamental security, their life savings, often when they can't recover. It's potentially catastrophic for them.
Absolutely devastating. So if you, the listener, suspect any of this abuse, isolation, neglect, financial funny business, what's the immediate step?
Florida law is crystal clear on this. Any person who knows or even has reasonable cause to suspect that an elder is being harmed must report it. It's not optional. It's a legal duty.
Mandatory reporting for everyone. And where do you report?
The central resource is the Florida Abuse Hotline. The number is 1-800-96-ABUS. That's 1-800-962-2873. You press 2 for Adult Protective Services. It's open 24/7.
Okay, 1-800-96-ABUS, press 2. Got it. Is there anything else for, say, immediate financial situations?
Yes, actually. There's a very powerful, quick legal tool called an injunction for protection against exploitation. Think of it like a financial restraining order.
So it can freeze assets quickly.
You can. And here's what makes it so accessible. The law specifically says that someone filing for this injunction may not be required to have an attorney.
Really? No lawyer needed up front.
That's right. It allows you or a concerned party to seek immediate court intervention to protect assets without first having to find and pay for a lawyer, which can be a huge barrier in a crisis.
That accessibility is huge. Okay, so wrapping this up, the big picture seems to be defining a senior in Florida law is, well, complicated. It depends on the situation.
Right. It's a spectrum.
But the legal framework designed to protect those deemed most vulnerable, the ones facing abuse, neglect, or exploitation, especially if their self-care is impaired, that framework is specific, robust, and carries really heavy penalties.
Definitely. The tools are there, and they have teeth.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, listener. If that highest level of criminal protection kicks in only when there's proof of impaired self-care, how do we balance that?
Exactly. How do we balance protecting the autonomy of, say, a perfectly healthy, sharp 60-year-old who is a senior for consumer issues with ensuring maximum protection for a frail 85-year-old, especially when things like power of attorney are involved?
It's a tough balance,
Ah.
something to think about. We'll leave it there for this deep dive.